I've been showing Marlin a bit of beekeeping, and mostly what I'm showing her is how not to do stuff.
That's always good to learn.
If it wasn't for her, my bees would all be dead.
Traditionally, obviously, hives were wooden.
Yep.
And then they started to bring out polystyrene hives.
Right.
And actually, although it doesn't seem very natural, a lot of beekeepers found that the bees survived the winter better in the polystyrene than they did in the wood. So Dave, what I do,
Yep.
because I like wood and it feels natural to me,
Yep.
but I don't like them to be cold, so that's why I wrap them up. But you know what? Insulation works hot and cold, so it'll be keeping the heat out as well.
Oh, well.
So basically, nectar is 70% water.
Oh,
And
right.
honey is only 20% water. So the bees bring in this very dilute sugary mixture, and then they have to evaporate it
Ah.
in order to reduce it to honey. So just be mindful when you're photographing that you don't have the veil crossed against your nose.
I see, because they could get in.
No, well, it's
No?
not, but they could sting your nose.
That's what I mean, yeah.
And that's... She's saying these trees got really well pollinated.
Because they're right next to the bees,
But
yeah.
there's a couple of fields down there
Yeah.
that didn't get, with fruit trees in, that didn't get well pollinated. Ripe yet, they won't be ripe for a few months yet, and
Yes.
it's been dry.
Yeah, making the connection.
Their instinct is to then go and slurp up loads of honey.
Yes.
I think the humans,
right.
humans think that the bees think that possibly there's a fire, and
Right.
so they need to load up with honey because they might need to leave. The other, so that's one thing. So, and then once the bees are sort of loaded up with honey, they're a little bit more dopey and less frisky. And the other thing is, of course, it confuses the smell out of things.
Mm.
So bees communicate by pheromones. So if they're letting off an alarm pheromone, the smoke dissipates that smell, so it helps them not to get too agitated. And it also just helps the beekeeper, because it encourages the bees to move away. If I need to pick up a frame, if I just give a tiny bit of smoke over the frame, then the bees move out the way, and then I can pick it up easily without just, you know.
They're communicating all the time.
They're communicating all the time. It's the Nasonov gland that they're exposing, which is a kind of, you know, come this way, chaps. I sometimes find that they're a bit confused in their direction. This morning I went quickly through 2 hives in the garden, Marlin, and two virgin queens have got mated.
Oh, wow.
One in a small box and one in an apodea. So I've never had one of my own queens. I've never done that before, so it's really exciting.
What's that?
An apodea is a tiny box. You'll see we've got a couple over there.
So the queen you put in there
Is in here.
must be there because there are eggs and nothing.
Yeah, larvae, yeah. So she's been here in the last 3 days. And there's a little patch of sealed brood. She's quite a new girl, but you know what? She's okay.
She's doing okay.
Yeah. There's no honey in this.
No.
This
So
is
what?
all. So well, there's one that's got liquid in it, but
Right.
that's honey. Capped brood.
Yes.
So that means that the queen has laid an egg. It's grown through its larvae stage, with
Yep.
the bees feeding it like mad,
Yep.
and then it gets capped over.
Yep.
And once it's capped over, it goes through metamorphosis and becomes an adult bee. Yeah, there are grubs there. I can see them. Yeah, yeah.
And it comes out in the camera, actually.
Comes out beautifully.
This is looking wonderful at the moment, I think, yes.
All I want to see, I don't really need to go through loads. All we want to know is the queen's here and laying.
Yeah.
So, and we know she's got stores.
Once I saw the queen last week, I saw it looking.
Yeah, I think that's in a way because that's less disturbance. If we see eggs, it means we know that there's been a queen walk across that cell within the last 3 days.
Right.
Because they only are eggs for 3 days.
The
Okay.
big one with the white dot.
Yes.
Yes, hang on. Oh, I can see her now. Yeah, and she's in focus.
Well, that's a
That's
miracle.
nice.
And very smartly dotted, if I may say.
I must have
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. Could you just do down that cap for me? There, that's it. Brilliant. There you go. That's it. That was quite a nice, gentle colony, but you can hear the tone. And bees tend to lay more prolifically, and so then you get a good honey harvest. But they don't deal so well with the Scottish weather, so if there's a long period of drizzle, they just carry on laying, and so the bees can starve. But the Scottish bee, theoretically, when the weather goes bad, she puts her laying on pause. if you think of a colony of bees as a superorganism, so this is one being.
Yeah.
The queen, all the workers and all the drones are one being. And you need, for reproduction, you want to go from being one to being two. So when the bees feel strong and they think they're up to a bit of reproduction, then they will organise it that they develop new queens, and before the new queen emerges, half the colony with the old queen will leave the hive and go and set up somewhere new.
Right.
So then they go off and they set up a new colony, and back here the new queen emerges and goes on her mating flights, and then she comes back and she starts laying, and so then this colony remains strong, you know, because it builds up, it gets a new queen, but it's still the same, and so you've gone from one organism to two organisms. This bee has just emerged. You can see it's just looking a bit wet and bedraggled. It's only just crawled out of its hole. So you can hear there's a really nice sound of happy bees buzzing. Yeah, he's a chappie.
Yeah.
So drones don't collect honey or nectar. Their main function is to go out, fly out to find a virgin queen and mate with her.
Right.
And then they die.
So from the bee point of view.
From the bee point of view, that nectar is full of sugar, and it's their carbohydrate for energy, and that pollen is their protein source, which they particularly need for building up, for feeding to young bees. If we look at the entrance and we see that bees are bringing in pollen, then that tells us that it's very likely that there's a good queen in there and that she's laying. You'll be able to see lots of eggs, okay?
Right.
And then around here, you'll see larvae of all the different stages.
Hang on.
Bee space is the amount of space that bees leave.
Yes.
So it's enough room for two bees to pass each other back to back walking across a comb.
Yeah.
And if you leave a space bigger than that in your beehive, they fill it up. So in the wintertime, I'm feeding them sugar syrup. So David, they store honey
Yeah.
so that they can keep the queen alive and keep the colony going through the winter when they can't go flying.
Yeah.
So that's why honeybees are so useful, because a lot of other pollinators, only the queen will go through the winter and then she'll emerge in the spring, and it takes her time to get going. But honeybees are up and running really quick. So that's why they store honey in order to take themselves through the winter. And here in Scotland, sometimes even without stealing honey, you have to feed them because the weather isn't always good enough. It's incredibly strong. Offset to the other side.
Yeah.
Yes, so the holes are offset one side to the other. First of all, and then the next stage is they can secrete, they stop being nurse bees and they start being comb-building, honey-managing bees, and their wax glands develop. And then the next stage is that they become guard bees and their sting develops then. And of course a bee, if it stings you, it dies, so it doesn't want to sting you. They sting you because they think that the colony is at risk. All the workers are infertile female bees, and the queen is made from an egg that could become a worker. But the only difference is when she's a larvae, she's fed quantities of royal jelly. They choose. Yeah, I'm going to turn it round when I put it back in. But is she on here? No. And it's all nectar. Yes, and really I'm still just a real beginner. I'm just learning all the time. I've made so many new mistakes this year. We'll just close up the gap and put the queen excluder back on. So I really hope that there's some eggs down here, because that would tell me that all is well. Yeah.